all those things and so much more. Just grab a seat in the chair or the floor. Sit back, relax, recline. While she drops another casual line. You're tuned into Casually Mollie with Mollie Amburgey.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to the Casually Mollie Podcast. I am your host, Mollie Amburgey, located right here in St. Louis, Missouri. If you haven't tuned in, we welcome you to the podcast. I am a comedian based here in St. Louis, and I am so excited to introduce our next guest. Her name is Emily Zell. One of my favorite things to do is bring on local comedians who are making an impact in our community, and she is definitely one of them. She's a teacher by day and a comedian by night, and she has a lot of good stories to tell about that. Make sure if you love our interview with Emily, which I know you will, that you should come to This Is Casually Happening. It returns, our comedy showcase, to the Golden Hoosier right here in South City, St. Louis, this upcoming Sunday, June 23rd at 7:30. Emily will be one of our featuring comedians. We also have local comedian Brendan Olson. And then our headliner is, Killer Purdy B. She's a local comedian as well, and she is always a beast on stage. Your girl will, of course, be hosting the show. And then we do have a special guest with Paul Caragino. He is a theater extraordinaire here in St. Louis, and we're so excited to have him on our lineup as he goes through his comedy journey. If you're like, hey, I maybe can't make it on June 23rd, but I want to know about all upcoming shows that are under the Casually Mollie Podcast umbrella, no need to fear. We have a website called thecasuallymolliepodcast.com. Yes, that is again, thecasuallymolliepodcast.com. And of course, you can always follow us on Facebook and Instagram at the Casually Mollie Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in, and here is our interview with Emily Zell. Welcome back to the Casually Mollie Podcast. I am your host, Mollie Amburgey, all the way here in St. Louis, Missouri. We interview all different comedians, entertainers, just a variety of different guests, you name it. But sometimes we always like to throw in some St. Louis favorites, and I am so excited. She is one of my favorite people. I say that because I've actually brought her on stage saying that exact intro. She's a teacher. She's just a lovely human being all around. Let's give it up for comedian Emily Zell, everyone. Let her hear it. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. How are we today, Emily? What's happening?
I'm great, Mollie. I gotta be honest, I've been admiring your podcast since I started comedy 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. This feels like a moment in my comedy career, I gotta be honest. I finally made it.
Thank you. Oh, you are so sweet. I mean, like I said, I always thought you were hysterical. Emily and we actually share a common feature. We both have no hearing in one of our ears, which is, hysterical. So we do
Hilarious.
Comedy. Yes, but Emily, first of all, thank you for that ultimate flattery. It's been a long time coming to have you on. So what have you been up to today? What have you been casually doing before we started recording?
I've been casually curriculum planning. So I'm a teacher, but one of my summer jobs is basically for 3 weeks for the district. We just plan curriculum and anything that needs to be adjusted or reevaluated. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's casual. It's kind of high stakes for if people can read or not, but it was casual to me today.
Oh my gosh. No, the bar is high now, everybody. Emily, most people are I made a coffee, I did some laundry, I ran some errands. And Emily's like, oh, hi, I'm a teacher. I'm making a difference in the world and I'm making curriculum happen. So good for you.
I'm trying. We're developing middle school and high school curriculum, and everyone's well, the kids don't have are not at the reading level. And I was I'm no offense, but why are you talking to us? Talk to the kindergarten teachers, right? You're sending them to us.
Absolutely. That's hot takes. Talk to the kindergarten teachers.
Don't send this to my boss.
No, I love it though. Your personality, in my opinion, is perfect for teaching. I wish I had more patience. I was good as a nanny because you have you're not at school teaching curriculum. I would always be helping out with homework and stuff like that, but not at the same level. So I have a lot of respect for teachers. What made you decide that this was going to be your career, before comedy?
That is a great question. Honestly, probably because I always loved school. I was just always like, even when I was in like first or second grade, I was like, I wish they gave us more homework. And like, obviously that I know I was not very likable, but, but like over the years, I less liked homework, but I just like loved school. I loved learning. Like I was just like a total nerd in that way. And I was just like, I don't really ever want to leave school. So I didn't, which I think is, I actually
and I didn't. Best line ever, and I didn't. Okay.
That's actually the best. Like, you shouldn't. I think the people that love school, I think I'm a fine teacher, but I can't really relate to the kids that are like, this sucks. Like, I hate it. I'm just like, I don't get it. Like, why aren't you so excited to do this? Like, I've had to learn to be more empathetic to those types of students.
So young me, yes.
Right.
I was always a nice student, but I never I was always like well behaved. I didn't act out in class, but I was definitely, which was a precursor to doing comedy, definitely that class clown type. Like everybody was like, oh, Mollie's going to be in class. We're going to have a joke or two. So I'm sure if you were my teacher, you would embrace it, but also be like, oh God, Mollie, we need to start studying and doing our homework. It'll be great. But I think that's awesome. We need leadership like that. So do any of your kids that you teach inspire your comedy act?
Yes. Someone actually asked me yesterday, they were like, do you try jokes like with your students? I was like, absolutely not, because my jokes are about my students. So they can't hear them ever.
Be like, Miss Zell, this is about me.
I'd be like, correct. But we did like a talent show at the end of the school year, and they were like, we need teachers to get involved. And they were like, and someone just said like, oh, Ms. Zell will like totally do comedy. And I was like, I never said yes to that. I really am against this. But they were like, come on, a bunch of teachers are getting involved. And I'm kind of a yes man. So I was like, and they were also doing these acts where like they were like purposefully bad, and then like our mascot would like sweep them off with the broom, which was kind of funny.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I'll do like a purposely bad act, and I like did like really bad jokes. I was like, people are gonna be like, she's saying that she's a comedian and like this is her material. Like,
it's satire. There you go. Yeah,
it is, right? But that goes over some kids' heads. But also, I ended up being the only teacher who said yes to performing.
Wait, so there weren't any other teachers?
No. They were like, so many teachers are going to do it. It's going to be great. And then I looked at the list and I was like, I'm the only teacher on this list. And they're like, yeah, you're the only one that said yes. I was like, I wish I would have known that. I would have also said no, obviously, if everyone was saying no. I kind of felt gaslit into doing it, but it's fine.
Right, exactly. It's like, oh, everybody's getting involved. And then it's like, oh.
They probably thought they didn't even ask teachers, and I just like begged to be on it. Is kind of what it looked like.
I am just desperate to be on this children's talent show. I can't get anywhere else. It's not even like, which by the way, when this comes out, you'll find out that Emily made it to the semifinals last night over at Helium Comedy Club. Very exciting. So it's like literally she has all these great opportunities, and yet they're like, oh, but she needs this talent show. I was
gonna say, it looks like I'm like, man, it's just really hard to get stage time in St. Louis.
Exactly. I got to. What is the age that you teach?
So I teach in high school, and I teach 11th and 12th graders. So
I need these 11th and 12th graders to love me. I need to get the stage time. I love it. That's hysterical.
It was.
Oh my gosh. Well, at least did it go well?
Honestly, I was really expecting it to go poorly. I was like just Googling like cheesy jokes. I like found it in, and I thought that they would be like, this is so dumb. And everyone was like dying laughing. I think they just, the bad jokes were bad enough that they were funny, but the kids were like losing it, and everyone was kind of like, great job, but also kind of like, why are you on this show?
Right, exactly.
So it was like a mix.
You're just like, oh yeah, me too. I don't know what's happening.
And I was like the second act too. Like it was like one kid and then me, and I was like, why am I like opening this show?
I love it. Our next opener is Emily.
Right.
Oh, I love it. Oh, that made me laugh. Oh gosh. Well, speaking of, acts and comedians, there was a post that you had put in. We have like a, obviously like a Facebook group for comedians and whatnot. And I would love to know more about the activity you had where you had comedians come to your school to talk to your students. What was that like and what did that involve?
Yes. So it was, so I taught a semester of creative writing, and it honestly didn't go great because all the kids were like, I hate writing. I was like, then why did you sign up for this class? And they were like, they just put me in here. So it wasn't like a great class experience, to be honest. And
they just put me in here. What?
Right. Because I was like, this is an elective. So if you don't like writing, like get out of this class. And the counselors were like, you need to stop telling kids that. We have nowhere else for them to go.
Oh my God.
Anyway, but I kind of could do whatever I want in this creative writing class. And so I was like, you know what? We're going to do like a stand-up comedy unit. I think that'll be high interest. I think it'll be interesting. And the kids were like really intrigued. And so I kind of just threw it out there. I honestly thought like no one would respond to the post, but I just posted in like our comedian Facebook group, just like, hey, is there any chance people want to come to like my school and just talk to kids? I was like, it's the middle of the day. People like have jobs.
And
like,
everybody responded.
I was very moved. And then I felt bad because I couldn't ask, like, I think there were like 20 or 30 comments. Like I couldn't have 20 or 30 people coming. It would just be overwhelming. So I just messaged a few, and Greg Warren, who's like a pretty big deal, even said he would come, which I was like, oh my gosh. So got him and a few others. And basically I just had them do a few minutes each. And I was like, just please make it clean, obviously. And then the kids got to like ask, just like do a Q&A. And then this was actually Greg's idea, but he was like, let's have them like give them a few minutes to like write a joke, and then we'll like workshop some of them.
Okay, so Greg, what?
I know. Right. He was like, yeah, I've done this like classroom thing before. I was like, is this like a thing?
Yeah, right. Exactly. You're like, I thought this was my idea. And Greg's like, one moment, I'm a professional.
Greg's like, here's my comedy curriculum. But
I love it. I love it.
So at first I'm going to give you the behind the scenes because I was very excited about this. And then they planned a field trip for like 2/3 of the school to like go roller skating on that day. And I was like,
comedy
seriously?
Roller skating.
So it was honestly like, there was like only 2 or 3 of my creative writing kids. And I was like pretty annoyed. And so they were like, they just went over the loudspeaker and they was like, anyone who wants to come, just come to this comedy thing.
Oh,
like,
I love it. Yes,
they were
absolutely.
Like, trying to save it. And teachers were like, great, give me like, 45 free minutes. Like, I'm just going to take my kids to this.
Right. Yeah.
But it ended up being like super cool. The kids were really engaged and like asked really good questions. And then it was really fun, like having the kids like free write. This one kid who I had like never talked to him about this, he wasn't even in my creative writing class, was like, I actually have a notebook where I just like write joke ideas. And so he like talked to Greg for a while.
Oh, what?
And, like made Greg laugh. Like it was like, he was like, that's hilarious. Like you have the mind for it. Mm-hmm. And so it was a very cool day. And I kind of felt like my two worlds collided.
Yes.
That often feel like I talk about my teaching on stage, but other than that, I don't often really feel like those worlds collide. But it was one of those moments where they did collide in a way that was, obviously it's like one of my passions. So to share that with kids was really special, but it also just ended up being like really fun. And I think some kids like developed an interest that maybe they weren't sure of, and also realized how like, I think people who think comedy's cool don't realize how accessible it is to just like go ahead and start. Yeah. Like to just like, you can just go to an open mic. Now, if you're like 15, you might need to like wait a few years.
Yeah.
So Greg was like, go to an open mic in like a year or two. But
it's like, what a safe like thing. Like in a year or two, you're allowed. Right, if it's 18 and up, go ahead.
And they were all like, I mean, we have fake IDs. And we were like, okay. Thank you. Don't tell people that.
I know. I am like not made for this generation. There was like, we had a sweet little girl who's like an intern where I work, and she was like, yeah, I am 16 years old, and there was a man at 9:45 a.m. hitting on me in the parking lot. And I immediately at 33 got very protective because I'm like, ew, who are these people? And she was like, I'm 16. And like the amount of maturity that she had to just send this person away so assertive. Not that I wasn't assertive, but I definitely would have just been like, what is happening? Versus these kids are like, we have fake IDs. So, no need for this advice, you know. It's like, it's all good. Yeah.
Did you ever have a fake ID, Mollie?
What? No, I never had a fake ID.
I never did either.
Oh my gosh. Well, I wasn't also like, here's the thing. I was a theater kid. So like anywhere I went was usually rehearsal after school.
Right.
So like I wasn't going in anywhere like cool in Cincinnati, Ohio. Like they would be like immediately they'd be like, okay, cool. So you're 17, please go away. But they had something here it was called Club 15. When I moved to, it's no longer here, by the way. Not only did it close, it like shut down, basically. It was like, bye. But it was an 18 and up club. And I remember thinking how like cool it was that was when I talk about on stage, I was in a sequin dress up my ass. Like, that's what I'm talking about. I was like, I felt like my friend had to come get me one time and it was in this big black SUV. And I was like, I feel like I'm a real housewife right now, like being picked up. This is like pre-Uber X. Yeah. So these kids are on a different level, and it ages me to say that, but it's true. I cannot keep up. So
no, I totally agree. My first year teaching, I just finished my second year. My first year, I remember like my birthday was over the weekend, and everyone was talking about their birthdays, and I was just like, my birthday is also this weekend, and they were just like, well, I'll take a shot for you this weekend, and I was like, you really can't be saying this stuff to me.
I was never that cool to be like, hey, never. You liked school, and I was just like, I'm just not cool. I just can't. I was like, I have a future in theater, and I can't mess this up. What are you talking about? Like, this is just, yes. So Emily, you would have been a straight A student. You probably would have tutored me, and we would have gotten along just fine.
For sure.
I love it.
So I was talking to someone today about this. Do you feel like your theater background, like, has really helped you in your comedy? Because I was also a theater kid, and I was like talking about that.
Oh, I didn't realize you were a theater person.
Yes,
oh my gosh. What else do we have in common? Oh my God.
I know.
We can't hear. We were theater kids.
That's all you need.
That's all we needed. And now we just can't keep up with this generation because they're like 5 light years ahead of us. So it is what it is. But yeah, I think even too, like when we were growing up, I feel like Facebook was like the big thing. Like now I feel like, not to be like kids are so, but they really are. Like there's TikTok, there's all these like other forms of communication like that we really didn't have versus like now Facebook is almost archaic to people where they're like, oh, Facebook, you know, you never know. So yeah, I'm so glad that we have all these similarities that we're just aging out. It's great. I love, right. But I do love that Greg came in. For those of you who don't know, you should know. Greg Warren is a very talented comedian. He happens to live here, but he tours all over. He's got a great comedy special called The Salesman that's on YouTube. So please go check it out. And I just adore, one of the things too I wanted to bring up about him is I think he was the very first comment on that post.
Yeah. Which, again, last thing I was expecting. And everyone kept replying to his comment going, Emily, you got to grab this. This is a great get. And I was like, I know. Like, I get it.
It does happen that way where there's he came and did a guest set at one of our like shows at the Golden Hoosier, which we'll get into in a second for you. And I had so many people and I say so many, like, not because I'm like, I really did have a lot of people, like, including people on Venmo that were like, who was that man who talked about peanut butter on stage? He was great. So I'm like, here's a link to his special. Or I don't even know if The Salesman was out yet, but I'm like, here's a link to like, you know, where you can find him. But that's just cool that we have in St. Louis a resource like that where we have talented people that are here that, you know, you can look up to and kind of follow their career and whatnot, which leads me into a question for you, Emily. Obviously, we know you're a teacher and you're, you know, an avid reader, you're a theater person and professional, but what made you decide to go into comedy? Was it theater as well, or?
No, I don't think theater is what made me go into comedy, but I think that theater gave me like it didn't feel like that much of a stretch for like my skill set or my comfortability. Like I wasn't super uncomfortable on stage. I was talking to someone today though, that I feel like the difference in some ways between theater and comedy, Mike Birbiglia says this. He's like, it's very personal if someone doesn't like your comedy, because they're basically just saying, I don't like your personality.
Yes, I know. I love Mike Birbiglia. He's hysterical.
I love him.
Yes.
But I think that's so true. Whereas like, if you're like in a play, you can be like, wow, like the script wasn't great. Like I was just doing it. But comedy, you're just like, these are like my thoughts about the world. Like,
yeah.
So, but yeah, I just felt like my first open mic, I didn't feel super uncomfortable on stage. So
where did you do your first open mic?
So I went to Mizzou. So my first open mic was in Columbia at this like bar called Eastside Tavern. They have like a every Tuesday open mic. And so
cool.
I was in college and I had gotten really into watching stand-up comedy. And I just like really liked watching it. And I kind of started, I think probably my like English teacher skills, I was very analytical about it. Like, oh, like how are they doing this? How are they doing that? Like it just was very fascinating to me. And I had a friend, his name is Joe Butler. He's kind of, he's still like a pretty big comedian in Columbia. And he basically had just started and he was like, Emily, you're like pretty funny. Like you should try it. And I was like, no, like that. I just watch it, you know? And he was like, just go to an open mic. And I think you're going to realize that it's not that high stakes. Like if you do bad, it's really not going to be the end of the world. Like no one's going to lose it. Like people mess up at open mics. Like it's fine. So he took me to one and I watched it. And, you know, I watched like some people do well and some people bomb. And it was just not a big deal. And he was like, see.
Yeah.
And then I was like, yeah. And he was like, you're coming with me to sign up for next week. And so, you know, he made me.
Good choice. Go Joe Butler. Hey. I like that though too, that there's like people who inspire you to do something, because that's usually how it happens, right? Like for my first open mic was kind of the same thing where somebody's like, oh, I just saw an advertisement in the bathroom, you should do this. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, you know, but you just, I like, sometimes it's like kind of gets frustrating after a certain point where you just hear like stories where it's like, oh, you know, this, it has to be like some real like magical experience versus like sometimes you find the best talent like yourself, Emily, where it's, you know, like it's just natural. And sometimes like it's a little bit more authentic and well received when it's more that way. Like I'm not saying there's anything wrong. Like I was a dancer growing up. We were both in theater. There's always like that constant, you know, desire to entertain, and that's great. But I do like your origin story of just trying something out and having somebody inspire you to do that. I think that's great.
Yeah, I'm so thankful. And it is like, and again, I've been like reading books or whatever, and I think I had just read like Jerry Seinfeld's book is the same thing. And he said like there is like, it feels so addictive to get those laughs. And I was like, oh, that's such an interesting thought. And then I like did an open mic and did one like soon after. And I remember my mom asked me, she was like, why, like you just did this last night, like why do you need to go again? I was like, you like don't get it. Like
yeah,
it's like addicting.
Yeah,
and you just want to get better.
Yeah, so you want to go all the time. Like even if it's so funny too, because sometimes people will be like, oh, you know, why are you taking this gig if it's like, you know, maybe it's not going to be as big or whatever. But it's great because then you're able to work on stuff, and it does get it. It's an interesting way of thinking about it. It does get a little addictive where you're just like, oh, and then when it doesn't come back, you're like, well, shoot. I gotta go back and I gotta look at my material, figure out what the hell went wrong. So I think that's awesome. So now, like I said, you're teaching, you started out in comedy. You know, what are you like, kind of, what is some of your plans for the future? Like, what do you feel like, are you going to start, you know, doing other shows on your own, or what's kind of like your thought process as you go through your upcoming comedy career?
That's a great question that I feel like I'm like trying to figure out still.
Yeah, that's all right. You got some time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I was like in college or whatever, you know, it's pretty easy to just go like do mics whenever you can and all that. But just like becoming a teacher like that, you are very on all day. Mm-hmm. And it just sometimes after like a long day of teaching, I'm just like, I don't want to talk to another person. I don't want to like be in front of anyone else. And so I think like just navigating, honestly, just the change in busyness and energy levels has been something that I feel like I'm still navigating, and
Sames.
yeah, and just like other like life things, like I'm like getting married soon, and just like things like that, like all of that.
I know. By the way, not to interrupt you, congratulations. How exciting. Yay. I totally forgot to mention that. Woohoo. But yes, you're planning a wedding. I understand.
Right.
It takes a long time.
Yeah, there's just like a lot going on. And so I feel like right now where my comedy career is at is I wish I was going to more mics. I definitely need to go to more mics and work on new material, but I'm kind of just like, when I get gigs, I do them and I like love doing them. But that's kind of like as far as it's at right now. I think I'm just trying to figure out like how to make a comedy life balance, and if this is like where my comedy career like will stay just kind of out of necessity, or if there's adjustments I need to make. So it's definitely just like figuring out life and comedy together it's a challenge.
Yeah, no, I feel like that's something everybody, because here's the thing, like I feel like something that I'm starting to do more, and I understand because I planned a wedding last year, and then you're coming back after like all that high of like making a wedding, and then you're kind of rebuilding after all that time. Yeah. And I say that lovingly because it just, I mean, anything that requires that amount of attention and detail does take a lot out of you, and you have a day job and you may have opinions and things that go into that, but I have definitely, and I'm sad that it took me until 33 years old to figure this out, but you definitely have to like set boundaries as to what is important for your time and your time management. And I think it's great that you already understand that and know that. Like there are just times where you can't always talk to people, and you have to value your time and your energy, so that way you can do all the killer sets that you want to do later on and all the shows. Which brings me to, you are actually going to be on our show this upcoming Sunday, June 23rd at 7:30 p.m. Emily's been on a few. You were on our showcase. I think that was the first one you were on that I produced. It was the This Is Casually Happening in the St. Louis Fringe Festival at Schlafly, downtown St. Louis. And then you just did our all-female lineup last November. And so it's so nice to bring you back for, third time's the charm and have you be a part of it. Yes, I know you have a special connection to the Golden Hoosier as well, where we are having the show. So I said, didn't you go to like to happy hour there a lot, or?
Definitely. So I used to live on the street that Golden
That's
Hoosier
what it was. Yes.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, I don't know if I told you this part, but Golden Hoosier was like, when I was, still in the dating scene, that was like my first date spot all the time. It was like,
yes, I love it.
Because it was so convenient, and it just, if I didn't have a good time, I could literally just be like, okay, bye, and just like walk home. Like it was just like perfect. Like it was, I feel like people, probably people working there were like, she's like here with a different guy. Like I'm not like crazy, but like semi-regularly just like going on dates, And I would always be like, we should go to this place. And it was just, it
just became your safe haven. Yes, your date spot. I love it. And it also too, what I love about the staffers, they always have your back. So I'm sure they weren't even judging. They're just like, let's just make sure that she's doing well. Make sure she's okay. And now your face, full circle, baby. Now your face is on a poster at the Golden Hoosier. And maybe one of those guys will walk in and be like, oh my gosh, I buy a ticket because I had a date here one time. It's like, if you have their numbers, just give them a text. Be like, tickets are $15. Thank you.
Any guy who I've ever been to the Golden Hoosier with, like, that place, isn't it great? Like,
could you just imagine we look out in the audience and we're just like, oh, hi. I love it. Oh, no, that used to be where Southtown Pub was. So that's where Jimmy and I met. So when I went back. Yeah, I know, like super random. So, again, full circle, sometimes I'll be like, hey, Jimmy, I'm producing this show. If you want to come. And he's just like, I got things to do, but all good. I got things to do. But yeah, no, we're so excited to have you back. Let me take a look here. Yeah, we've got a lot that we've covered through this episode. So I really, first of all, thank you, Emily, before we close out today. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, giving us a good laugh. I love that we got to learn more about your teaching experiences. And I love too that, you know, you got that creative writing group going on. There's just a lot of cool things that you have going, and I'm really happy for you. What we normally end on though is, what is maybe one piece of advice for comedy that you wish your, you know, previous self had known versus today? And then what's maybe a piece of advice that is not comedy related that you would like to give your previous self that you didn't know today?
Oh man, that's good.
Yeah. We used to do just comedy, and then I'm like, then we have a lot of philosophy and people that come on here. They're like, but you know, this could also relate to real life. And I'm like, all right, we can also just change the whole question. It's fine. Thank you.
Yeah, I feel like, honestly, as I'm like thinking about it in my head, I do think most comedy advice can transfer to real life, which is kind of special. But I think what I was going to say, I'm sure someone else has probably said this, but I just have noticed like how much more I learn from a bad set than like a set that goes really great. Like sometimes I feel like that sharpens me more because I get like almost more like data about my set. Like, okay, this didn't work, or this didn't work, or this like sometimes works, but doesn't always work. So how can I adjust it? And I've grown to become, as much as it's like annoying and you beat yourself up, I've grown to like find ways to be thankful for those sets because of how much I learn and grow as a comedian. So I don't know if that's like advice, but just like.
Yes, it is. And I will tell you something, again, not to interrupt you, but I am so proud of you. And not just because I love you and we're family, but I appreciate you saying that, because out of all the episodes I've made, not one person has ever said that. So
really?
This actually almost makes me respect you even more than I already did, because it definitely shows the maturity and understanding, because I feel like a lot of times people will have a bad set and they're just like, well, fuck this, you know, that was terrible. And I understand it definitely can be a punch to the gut or the heart, and you can get a little hard on yourself sometimes. And we're all very guilty of that, and that is okay. But I really appreciate you saying that, because I actually was having a similar conversation, not necessarily about sets, but when, let's say you apply to a festival and you don't get in, right? Looking at the rejection email, actually, like a lot of rejection emails now are now starting to be like, oh, hey, here's actually what we're looking for when you submit stuff. And so it is cool to be like, oh, let me send a new and improved video then. So that way you can get a better result, hopefully, the next time around. But you know, people are like, oh, I got rejected and, you know, this sucks and it's terrible, versus like, okay, well, let's see what happened. But I think that's the theater side of us, where we're like, okay, yes, bad things can happen, rejection can happen, but we move forward from it. So anyway, thank you. And then you can continue your thought now.
Oh, no, I feel like that is pretty much the thought. And then I would say my like life advice kind of also applies to comedy. So I'll just like start off comedy and get to life. But I guess just what I was thinking about, so sometimes in comedy, this might be like too comedy specific if for like maybe non-comedy listeners, but people sometimes will like give you tags or something and be like, oh, you should like add this or adjust this. And sometimes those can be super helpful. Like sometimes other comics have totally given me like my best tags, but at the same time, there have been some that I thought were really good. I'm like, that is a great idea. And it does not work for like my voice as a comedian, or it's not working in my brain, so I don't think it's going to come off right. And I think what I've learned is being open to advice, but at the same time, like trusting your gut and still being true to yourself is a balance that I think we're all finding probably for the rest of our lives. But just like, I don't know. I was thinking about that today of just even like my fiance is like a speech coach and he coaches like comedy events, so he has a really analytical mind about comedy, so his like perspective can be really interesting. But there's been times where he said like, you should add this, and I'm like, I like that, and I don't think I would ever say that in real life, so I'm not going to add it because it's not going to come off genuine. And so just like being open to advice but staying true to yourself at the same time.
Exactly. Be authentic, you know.
Yeah,
exactly. Like, you know, it's always good to receive advice, right? Like, here's the thing. Not that I don't love everything that Emily has said on this podcast, but, you know, sometimes I'm sure people maybe listen to an episode, and if you do, thank you. Please like and subscribe. We love it. But, you know, like, and that goes for any podcast or anything you watch, or, you know, sometimes like, you know, listen to it, and if it, it's just like trusting your gut. If it touches you, right? Like if you watch, like, for example, I was watching a TikTok video yesterday morning when I was drinking my coffee, and it really hit home for me. And I'm like, this is exactly why it's in my algorithm. I understand. Thank you. I receive it. But, then there's just some things that you see and you're like, well, I receive it, but it's not necessarily for me. And that's okay. Like, you also, exactly what you said, Emily, you have to be true to yourself. And I think sometimes in a world where it can be very, not to be like so philosophical, but in a world where things are chaotic and sometimes like there's almost too much open communication sometimes where you're like, where do I even start? Like, where do I focus? Like, I love that you're just like, hey, stay true to yourself, but also, be available to listen because you just never know. Keep that life balance, which I will say, I know you said you're like, oh, I'm struggling, but you seem to do that very well. So we'll just have to go get coffee and you can tell me all your secrets.
When I know them, I'll let you know.
Exactly.
I'm playing it day by day.
Aren't we all? Well, Emily, thank you so much. Before we head out today, other than our fabulous show at the Golden Hoosier that you should come see on Sunday, June 23rd at 7:30 p.m., tickets available on Eventbrite or by visiting thecasuallymolliepodcast.com. What other shows or just anything that you have coming up that you would like us to know about?
I'm trying to think. I actually don't. Nothing's coming to the top of my mind that's coming up, but things usually, I feel like in comedy, you probably get this, things come up a little more last minute sometimes. Mm-hmm. So I would just say, like, if you're interested in seeing a show, like, just follow me on social media. I'll always post what's going on. So my Instagram is at Emily_Zell, and that's where I post everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll make sure to, by the way, when we share this episode, any clips, anything, we'll make sure that we put Emily's Instagram handle in. And always make sure that we have any guests on, just follow them. We love the support. As a comedians, we love knowing that we're loved and we're liked because, as you heard earlier, it's addictive. So,
but yeah, honestly, Mollie, like this, I don't even think I can comprehend how long I've been dreaming about being on this podcast. So this is a big moment for me. I'm very thankful that you asked me.
Oh, well, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. And, I hope to record more episodes. So we'll have you back on in the future. But that's what happens. Life happens. You get married, you buy a house, and you're like, oh, shit, I better go record a podcast episode. So,
I know.
So I was like, I got to get my girl Emily Zell on. Oh, no, I appreciate that's so sweet that you even said that. Thank you for being here or, virtually, on this podcast. What I always say is now that our episode is casually over, what are you going to casually do now?
I am probably about to casually go feed my dogs because I think they're going crazy. So
we heard some barks earlier, and I know
I'm sorry about that.
No, it was just funny because I could tell you were having like a very serious moment about your answer. I forget what it's even about, to be honest, because I was like, oh my gosh, like she really, her heart and soul is like in this response, and these dogs are like, fuck you. Come find us. Thank you.
And I was like having a moment before this. I was like, if I leave them outside, there's a chance they bark. If they come in here, there's a chance that they will just like growl the whole time. So I was like, there's no winning.
Exactly. And I'm a dog person. Like we cannot put them outside. It's too high. And then inside, this is just the part of having a pet. And anybody that is listening probably understands. You could have a cat. We've had cats like jump on the table when we're doing a virtual interview. And the person's like, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, it's fine. You know what? Right. We've had kids show up where I'm like, bring your kid into the camera. Like these are that's just life, man. Like, dogs, babies, kids, cats, people. It is what it is. Well, go and feed your dogs. Looking forward to, what's nice about doing a local interview is I can actually be like, I will see you soon.
Right. On Sunday.
Exactly. I will literally, that's right. I will see you on Sunday. It's like, I almost forgot, even though I made the same announcement like 5 seconds ago. Oh, God bless. All right, Emily. Well, best of luck with everything, and I will see you on Sunday. Bye.
Bye. Thanks, Mollie.
Yeah, no problem.